My name is Kiala, and this is the story of my life. I was born in any town, USA, and I lived with my mom, dad, and grandma in a little house in the suburbs. Both my parents worked, so when I was little, my grandma looked after me. We were very close. She played with me, took me to school, helped me with my homework. We played cards, made dinner together, all sorts of things. It was great, and we loved each other very much. We were like two peas in a pod. I was a very happy little girl, but when I was 11, my grandma died. I was really depressed. My parents were sad too, but after a week they had to go back to work. They told me I was old enough to look after myself. So I did, but I didn't like it. I was scared and lonely, and I missed my grandma very much. That's when I started pulling my hair. I remember picking at my split ends in class when I was bored, and pretty soon I was obsessed with my hair. When I was home alone, I would pull the strands out by the root. Pretty soon I had a small bald patch on the side of my head. It was too hard to try and stop, so I hid it instead. I wore a hat to school, but when the teacher asked me to take it off, I started crying and refused. So she pulled me into her office after class so that I wouldn't be embarrassed in front of my friends. She told me that it might be a good idea to go and see the school counselor, Miss Berry, to help with my anxiety and my stress and my problem with my hat.
Hi, I'm Miss Berry. I first met Kiala when her teacher sent her to me after she refused to take her hat off in school. The teacher told me she had noticed Kiala picking at her hair the last few weeks and thought Kiala needed help. It took me a while to gain Kiala's trust, but she finally took her hat off for me. When I saw the bald patch on the side of her head, I suspected she might have trichotillomania. Trichotillomania is a disorder that involves recurrent, irresistible urges to pull out hair from your scalp, eyebrows, or other areas of your body despite trying to stop. Suspecting Kiala was struggling with trichotillomania, I contacted her parents and we talked about some ways we could help her. I explained to Kiala and her parents the warning signs include wearing hats or wigs, wearing a lot of makeup or glasses, excessive fiddling with hair, preoccupation, anxiety, depression, career or academic decline, avoidance of windy and wet situations such as swimming, and changes in social behavior patterns. The onset of trichotillomania usually begins around age 12 to 13. It is more common for females to have the disorder. 1.5% of men and 3.4% of women have trichotillomania, usually using a slightly relaxed definition rather than the DSM definition. It is often comorbid with anxiety and mood disorders, mostly major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder, substance abuse, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. We agreed that Kiala was probably pulling her hair to self-soothe, especially when she was alone after school, so we enrolled her in the after-school program. We also agreed that Kiala would benefit from some counseling to process her grief over losing her grandma, so her parents took her to group therapy for bereaved children at the local hospice. These interventions seemed to help Kiala, and after a few weeks, her hair was growing back and she seemed much happier.
I was happier. I loved Miss Berry, and I really liked hanging out after school. Sometimes I helped the younger students, and that made me feel important. And I liked my group therapy. It was comforting to be with other kids who knew how I felt. I stopped pulling out my hair, and even though I still picked at my split ends sometimes, I thought I was cured and I would never have trichotillomania again. I was wrong. I started pulling my hair again when I was in middle school. The school was larger, and there were a bunch of kids that I didn't know. With no after-school program to keep me busy, I was spending too much time at home alone, and pretty soon I was pulling out my hair again. I didn't know my school counselor, and I missed seeing Miss Berry in the halls, so I did my best to hide my growing bald patch with headbands and scarves. My friends seemed to like me one day and hate me the next. There was so much drama. I thought that I would be fine just hiding it, but then I stopped doing things like going to sleepovers and swimming. My parents didn't know I was pulling out my hair again because they were too busy fighting and arguing all the time. I couldn't handle listening to them scream at each other, so whenever I heard them start to fight, or even just start to talk, I would just run and hide in my room. I felt so alone, and I would just sit there and pull out my hair. They eventually got divorced, and they were so stressed out they never even noticed until I started pulling out my eyelashes and had to wear false ones. My mom eventually noticed, and I had to tell her what I was doing, and I showed her the bald patch on my head. That's when she took me to see a psychologist. She knew that I couldn't deal with this anymore.
Hello, my name is Dr. Davis and I am Kiala's psychologist. Even though it was pretty obvious by her large bald spot that she had trichotillomania, I still needed to diagnose her. To diagnose a client with trichotillomania, the following criteria must be met: repetitive hair pulling leading to noticeable hair loss, increasing tension prior to and when resisting pulling, a sense of gratification, relief, or pleasure when pulling, and results in distress or impairment in social activities, and is not caused by any other mental disorder or mental condition. Because she uses hair pulling as a way to self-soothe when she is bored or anxious, we decided to try decoupling therapy. The basic idea is the individual shifts the behavior and movement of pulling to another movement. The goal of decoupling is to deviate the behavior rather than stop it. For Kiala, I suggested she massage her scalp rather than pull at it. This seemed to work for Kiala for a while, but when high school started, the homework load started to increase, the fights with her boyfriend and friends were frequent, and she began to stress. Soon after, she started pulling her hair out again. So I researched another therapy known as habit reversal therapy. Habit reversal therapy is considered the most effective intervention for trichotillomania. There are three main elements to this treatment. The first is awareness training, which is simply empowering the client to be cognizant of their hair pulling as well as the thoughts and emotions that precede the pulling. Second is competing response training. Competing response training is the act of doing something that is incompatible with the pulling, which makes it impossible. For Kiala, we started having her ball her hands into a fist for about 1 minute rather than pulling her hair. The final component of this therapy is social support. For this, support is brought in for the client to encourage the client to participate in the competing response training. I chose to bring in Kiala's friend Anne. She seemed to have the closest relationship with her. This treatment seemed to work really well for her. After a few months, Kiala's hair began to grow back, and over the next few years, we worked together to keep her on track through the challenges she faced in high school and preparing her to go off to college. We both felt confident that she had the necessary tools she needed to be successful in college. I also suggested some alternative methods such as hypnosis, herbal remedies, yoga, and meditation. She chose meditating for 10 minutes whenever she felt the urge to pull her hair.
So this is me now. Can you believe it? I'm a freshman in college, and even though I miss my parents and old friends, I'm doing okay. Sometimes I catch myself fiddling with my hair, picking at my split ends, but I don't pull my hair out like I used to. I know I'll never be cured, and I'll have to stay vigilant, especially during stressful times like finals, but I feel hopeful that I have the tools I need and know I can always go back to see Dr. Davis if things get really bad again. Me and my roommate Anne, my best friend from high school, even meditate together, so that really helps me keep on track. She's always really calm and focused and helps keep me centered whenever I start to get stressed out. Not only that, but she's also really helped encourage me to go to the school counseling center if needed, and I've even started to go to some football games and meet a few boys.
Hey, what about me? I'm Kiala's roommate, Anne. We were best friends in high school. It took her a while to share her secret with me, but Dr. Davis encouraged her to confide in her friends. I'm so glad she trusted me, and now that we're roommates, I know I can help her stay on track. College can get pretty stressful sometimes, so if I see her tugging at her hair, I say our redirecting phrase, Channing Tatum, and it reminds her to stop without me saying, stop! College can be stressful, and it can be fun, but she's doing great. She even has a date with...
So, that's the story of my life so far. It's a little tricky at times. Get it? Tricky.